I really love seeing walkthroughs, even when it's on construction, or day in the life of the leasing team when they do this. I think it's really fun. I think we all want to know what's going on somewhere, regardless of when we see something being built. We're like, oh, what does that look like over there? Is that a pickleball court? Is that a dog park? Like what's going on over there? I think we all want to know what those look like as early as we can.
Welcome back to the Multifamily Marketers Podcast, the show where we break down real-world marketing strategies for multifamily companies. I'm your host, Josh Grillo, co-founder of Resident 360, and I am joined today by the multifamily maven herself, Miss Caroline Mills. Caroline, welcome to the show once again. How are you doing?
Hi, Josh. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
So today, we're diving into one of the most crucial time frames of any new development. The first 90 days of a lease-up. So we're going to walk through the top 3 marketing moves you need to hit the ground running. So if you have a development, if you have a lease-up coming online, this is the show you need to pay attention to. So Caroline, are you ready to jump into it?
I'm ready. Let's dive in.
All right. So let's talk about this first 90 days. Why do the first 90 days, why are they so critical from a marketing perspective?
This is so critical and so important because time moves quickly, but time moves even faster in a lease-up. So you may be thinking 90 days doesn't sound very long, and it's not. But those first 90 days, that's like putting your first foot forward, your first time seeing somebody, everybody's first recognition of you. So those 90 days are so, so crucial. When you're looking at, typically a 12-month lease time frame, that is the fourth of someone's lease. So those first 90 days are so, so valuable and the strongest time for you to get a head start and just really build that confidence, that momentum for your team, and just set them out on the right foot for their lease-up journey.
What do you see as a big mistake communities make during this early window, this first 90 days?
I would say not starting your marketing early enough, even before the 90 days. Or the team's thinking, oh, well, we're brand new. The leads will just come in to us, and that's just going to happen naturally. It is becoming harder in certain markets where you're just competing with other people who are constantly building around you too. And that's just not the case anymore. You really have to set out a strong digital presence as early as you possibly can.
So when it comes to, let's say, digital presence, strong digital presence, new development, a lease-up, and let's shift gears and really dive into, say, a landing page or a website for a new development. Where in the timeline should this landing page or new website, when should that actually go live? When should that launch?
I would say as soon as possible. And I know that can sound different for every single person. And you're thinking, well, duh, as soon as possible. If you know you are breaking ground in the next 12 months and you've got a name for your community, it needs to be 12 months out. Truly as soon as physically possible. When you know the location that your property is going to be at, you may not even have a USPS address yet, but as soon as you know where your location is going to be, you've got your correct permits and everything in place with the city and you've got a name, definitely as soon as possible. Even if it is a landing page that just announces your property name, the smallest little blurb about you and says, more coming soon. Get that strong connection with Google early, have it start crawling your site, have a URL that you own with your name, just do it as quickly and as soon as you can.
So get the website, even though it sounds like more of a landing page, if it's 12 months out, even though you have barely enough information, get something up, get it live, get eyeballs, start going to it. Now,
absolutely.
Are there some non-negotiables when it comes to this website in terms of features and content? Now, obviously, I know 12 months out, you don't have a lot of stuff, so you're going to be slowly building on that. But what are some of the things that, we want to have on this website?
Absolutely. I think the key thing you can add, and, we're all familiar with adjusting timeframes as building happens, especially when you're starting 12, 18 months out. Definitely put your time that you're anticipating launching, even if it's something as broad as late 2026 or winter 2026, whatever that may be. Definitely include the time that you're looking to launch. You want some eyeballs on there, you want Google crawling your site, but you don't want somebody going there and not knowing when they could possibly move into you if they're truly interested. If you have contact information, I would say put it as early as you possibly can, even if that is going to your management company's home office and just directing them to something general. Somewhere where someone can ask a question, submit a contact form, a quick email, join into a VIP mailing list, something where you can tell that people are interested and have ways to contact them as quickly as you can.
I mean, I always would advise people 12 months out to start building their email list, right? For me, that
Yeah.
was always the big deal.
Yeah.
Have a easy to fill out contact form, first name, last name, unit type that they're interested in,
Uh-huh.
obviously email address, phone number. You don't have to make phone number as a necessary field to be filled out,
Right.
but enough where at least you capture their name and email and unit type they're interested in. So then you can start an actual email marketing plan and get
Absolutely.
them interested month over month. Although it is pretty far out in terms of when the property might be open. But again, if you start nurturing that list, that email list of people that said, "Hey, I'm interested in this new property when it opens," if you nurture it properly over time,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
chances of winning those folks and bringing them in for, say, a hard hat tour or some type of policing activity may work
Mhm.
in your favor. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely, 100%. That's completely correct. And I like how you say, starting at 12 months out, you may have 2 people on that list your first 30 days, but it also gives you a good temperature gauge to see how your other marketing is performing. That gives you a good gauge of when you're doing outreach events, when you're starting your digital marketing. It gives you a good temperature gauge of how well those things are working if you're already collecting them. If you start those things out and you have no way of knowing if people are actually interested or a way to contact you, then you don't even know how any of this is performing out there. So 100%, I agree. You should be collecting those as soon as possible, even if, like you said with email marketing, even if at first it is some email every 30 days, just keeping them top of mind and remembering who you are. You may not start hard hat tours for the next 6 months, but absolutely take those names down as soon as you can. You never know in the current job market or, people moving for all sorts of reasons, how that could impact them 6 to 12 months down the line.
I think one of the big mistakes I see multifamily companies making when they have a new lease up and they start this process of putting a landing page up and they start marketing to it and stuff like that, and they start collecting email addresses, is they do nothing with them, right? Like how many times does that
Yes.
happen, right? It's like, okay,
Yes.
we finally got our landing page up. It's you're 6 months out, you're 9 months out, or 12 months out, and you're collecting email addresses, right? Literally, you've got
Yeah.
signage,
Yeah.
construction signage up all around the property. You got a URL on that signage. People are seeing it, eyeballs are seeing it. You're in a walk by area, and people are actually, maybe they're taking out their phones, and there's a QR code on there, and it all funnels to this landing page, this one page
Yes.
website. But again, you collect these email addresses, and then you don't do anything with them, right? And then all of a
Yep.
sudden, it's
Yep.
4 weeks before your property is going to be open, and you're like, "What do I got to do? Well, I got all these email. Let me just start emailing these people right now."
Yeah.
So that's not the way to do this, right? You want to
Right.
nurture these people in. So
Right.
at the very least is once, twice a month, if you can do it, you send out
Yeah.
this, send out I like to say, call it a VIP email, right? Something that's
Mhm.
going to get
Mhm.
open, right? So good subject line. The contents of the email can be short and sweet, couple sentences, and usually a picture, right? And again, it
Absolutely.
can be taking these people along your construction process, right? So if it's like, windows just got in and it's an image of the
Yeah.
windows or
Yeah.
whatever it's happening, but take these interested people that gave you their name, they gave you their email address, take them along in your process. Let them be a part of your story because what's going to happen if you constantly nurture these people every single month with 1 to 2 emails every single month,
Mhm.
what's going to happen is when pre-leasing is ready, you have this hot list of people, and some of those
Exactly.
people are going to raise their hand. They 100%
Lisa.
will. So it's going to make your leasing efforts so much easier. But unfortunately, we don't see a lot of companies taking advantage of it. So I wish they would. So let's move on from the email marketing side. Let's
Absolutely.
talk about Google business listing.
Uh-huh.
So that also can be kind of a gray area because you've got a new development. You might not even have a valid, address yet, right? So a lot of times it's hard claiming that without quite an address. So how important is it to claim and optimize that listing before opening day?
Very important. And again, this is another one of those things. You'll get the vibe of our messaging here of do it as quickly as possible. All that can happen is by you claiming your Google business profile as soon as you can and making it verified as soon as you can is just helping your SEO. Google is now collecting that landing page that's been up for 6 to 8 months. It's now collecting that you've got an active Google business profile that you are claimed in, that you're adding info to. All it's going to do is help connect all of these dots through Google, help your SEO, help you get recognized sooner, and just give people more information. People like legitimacy and seeing, information that they can find when they're searching your property name. All it's going to do is help you down the line. You've got a few caveats with that. Like you said, you may not have an address. You may not have something to claim. You might be building it from scratch to where they need you to verify the listing. And a lot of times, have to do that with videos. So there are some snags you can hit, but as long as you have the listing yourself and you're working on getting it verified, definitely do it as quickly as you can. And then don't forget to add that information as you're getting it. I think that's another thing I've seen before. It's like, oh, well, we have it. Oh, we forgot to add hours because now we're doing hard hat tours. Or, oh, we forgot to add, the new tracking phone number on there. So while it's great to have it, just make sure that's something that you're still paying as much attention to as early on.
Do you think it's important for these new lease-ups to start getting reviews like right out of the gate, right? So obviously, you have
Yes.
a Google business listing, it goes live, right? And the number one thing, guys, for everybody, the listeners out there, if you have a lease-up and you have a Google business listing and it's live, please make sure you're paying attention to it because you will get reviews on there and you
Absolutely.
better be responding
Yes.
to those reviews, good and
Yes.
bad. But how important, I imagine it's got to be super important to really build some type of review process or review cycle where if you're having people tour the property, like literally asking
Yes.
for reviews right when that tour is done, like is that a big thing? Should people be doing that?
Extremely, yes, it is extremely important. You wanna validate and build that trust in your prospects as early as you can. I think there is a certain you're always gonna have your early adopters. You've always got the people who wanna live in the newest, the nicest, the most fancy place they can, and they're just an early adopter of anything they do. And then you have those people who are always skeptical of new builds. They say, "Oh, well, I know they can be delayed, you can have issues that go wrong, you won't have amenities that open." So you always have that skepticism from people too. And or you might be living in a place where you've got a lot of new development and maybe people aren't super happy with that. We've seen that in instances before. So using who you can, like you said, those hard hat tours early on, those people calling for information and they're excited about something that you're going to be offering, use all of those reviews as early as you can. Setting yourself up for success before your doors are open is only going to make it so much easier for you once those doors do open. Like you said, collect those people early on so that the time your doors do open, now you're set up for great success. You've got a 4.8, a 5.0 Google star rating. You've got 200, 300 prospects that you're already emailing. You're already getting hard hat tours. You already have a claimed Google business listing. Because once those doors are open and you've got people cycling in all the time, now you've got residents. Well, now you're a lot busier than you were 6 months ago when you had that time.
Makes sense. So let's shift gears over to social media now. So how
Mhm.
can early social media content build an excitement for a community before it opens?
That is a great question because I think a lot of people have the belief that they must have their own digital assets before they start social media. And while your own digital assets are great, and I, would absolutely suggest sharing those as soon as you have them, like you said, even if it's something of a construction photo of a window going in, but you don't need those things to get them started. Again, start building that presence online as early as you can, regardless of what it is. Use stock photos to an extent of your ability of what makes sense for your community. If you're located at the beach, include stock photos of people surfing and include, things around town. Include photos of local businesses, of events going on around town. Build that reputation. And you never know what something early on is going to catch someone's eye. You might post a local coffee shop that you're only, steps away from your community. That draws someone in and gets somebody on your VIP list. So you never know what posting besides your own property is going to get you.
What would you say one underrated piece of digital content that every lease up needs to create? What would that be?
I really love seeing walkthroughs, even when it's on construction. or day in the life of the leasing team when they do this. I think it's really fun. I think we all want to know what's going on somewhere, regardless of when we see something being built. We're like, oh, what does that look like over there? Is that a pickleball court? Is that a dog park? Like what's going on over there? I think we all want to know what those look like as early as we can. And, especially if you've got news articles circulating around about your community, having like fun walkthroughs of the team doing maybe a hard hat tour themselves of a unit before installation goes in. Maybe you get cool swatches that you're putting up on the wall in your clubhouse. I love getting to see those like walkthroughs of that kind of stuff. And I think it just makes it more personable for all of your prospects watching.
That sounds like that would be some really interesting, you know, watchable content. So I like
Yeah, it's
that.
different from your normal stuff.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely what separates you. Before we dive deeper into like running targeted ads, one thing I want to talk about is um, banners, signage on the property
Right.
itself, right? Because that's a
Yeah.
big part of it, right? You get these new
Yeah.
developments, and you see some that have just absolutely these massive vertical wall banners that, it's like
Yes.
livestella.com or
Yeah.
leasestella.com. What have you seen that you really like, right? Is there stuff that you've seen you're like, wow, this is like, I love this style banner, or I like this property is doing it right? Is there any type of rules that a new development should follow when it comes to signage on the property?
I really love seeing places with personalized and branded windscreens
Yeah.
on their fences. I think it helps keep your property looking clean. You don't see all of the construction mess that's being left around. You don't see workers as they're in there. What's going on? I think one, it gives you a little bit of mystery because people are like, oh, well, I want to know what's inside there. So I'm going to go to the website. But also, it just makes you look nice and clean. Your buildings are not going to be branded when you've just got wood going up or you're just getting a roof on. And so I think taking that chance to get some really clean, really nice branded things out there, especially windscreens that are kind of covering and help hiding some things, those are some of my favorite pieces.
And probably windscreens on all construction fencing you have surrounding the entire property, I would imagine, right?
Yes.
Specifically, if you're in some
Yes.
walkable area, you want all that fence
Absolutely.
covered. And I think you can put some really unique messaging on there. You can have the QR code on that
Yes.
on that the windscreen as well. You have the property name. You can have the URL. So,
Yes.
even the potential opening date, if it's, spring 2026 or whatever that time frame is.
Absolutely. And I
That's
think you bring up the point of being in a walkable area doing that and having the QR codes. And it just makes you look really respectable of your neighbors around you. When you're keeping it clean around your community and you've got those windscreens of the privacy, maybe it's just helping a few things. People are going to notice that versus it being a constant mess, things left around, making it look crazy on the inside. Construction happens, but I think it just makes you appear more respectable to neighbors as well.
And one thing when it comes to that, like windscreens, any on-site signage for that matter, I think a big thing is trying to keep it clean, right? So I
Yes.
live in San
Yes.
Diego, and you drive downtown, and there's tons of development going on downtown right now, and lots of construction, fencing, signage everywhere. But you see the properties that do a really good job of making sure everything is tidy, clean, looks nice, feels nice. And then you see the others that are like sun faded, dirty from
Yeah.
all the construction dust. And it
Yeah.
leaves honestly, it leaves to me kind of like a not a great impression, right? So, guys listening, just something to think about. If you got a new development going, you've got a lot of windscreen signage and stuff like that on the property, pay attention to it. Ask yourself a question on a scale of 1 to
Yeah.
10. How clean is it? Is it so
Yes.
sun faded you can barely see it? If so, replace it, right? If you got some type of sandwich boards out and they're really dirty, clean them, make them nice,
Yes.
right? First impressions are everything, even during the construction phase. So
Absolutely.
good stuff. All right, let's jump into a little bit more on targeted ads because this is a big
Mhm.
thing, right? I mean, obviously you've got this new development. You've got it surrounded by signage. It's
Mhm.
driving traffic to, either a landing page or a full website. But you
Mhm.
also want to piggyback with paid media, right? And running paid
Abs
ads such as Google ads and social ads for new development. So how early in the timeline should a lease up, a new development actually start running paid ads?
I would say at least 3 to 6 months of when you know that you can start accepting applications, and you're going to be accepting applications likely, 30 to 60 days before your first move ins and your first building is going to open anyways. So think of it 3 to 6 months before you're going to start accepting applications. And that's likely 6 to 8 months before you're going to have your first move in. And this can be as cheap as literally spending, $10 a day. So $300 a month on your Google ads just to, again, get those things connected on Google. Let it see that you are feeding it updated information. It's connected to a website that it's crawling. It's connected to a Google business profile as soon as it possibly can. And then it's got the maps location and it's all just working in tandem together and it's crawling itself and saying, okay, there's really valid things here that are being updated that I should be pushing out to people. And the earlier that you get some of that learning time down with Google, we always tell our clients it can take, anywhere from 30 to 90 days to really get that good learning period of Google out of the way so that you truly know how your ads are working, what keywords are most effective, what ad groups are doing the best. So the sooner that you can get that learning phase out of the way and actually be in your ramp up time where you're truly using your ad spend, in some markets that might be, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 they're using a month in for Lease-Up. And so if you can get that learning time out of the way with this cheaper budget where you're kind of learning how, it's going to make your marketing dollars down the line worth so much more, higher return on investment.
So you can go low on the budget when you're further out in the timeline, obviously.
Absolutely.
Let's just say you're open, right? You're open.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and now I would imagine you really need to put some firepower behind the budget, right? You can't go out
Absolutely.
again, obviously it all depends on, how many units and stuff you have. But even then,
Yes.
you still got to go at it with a pretty big budget. Is that right?
Absolutely. Like we were talking about earlier, make it easier for yourself down the line. When you're 3 months in, like we talked about your first 90 days, you're already a fourth of the way through, your first move-ins leasing time. You want to make sure you're keeping an eye on your back door and you are closing that back door. Spend that money ahead of time where it makes the most sense so that you're getting those pre-leases down the line. Then saying, oh, well, instead of, I know I should have spent $3,000, but I only want to put $1,000 in the first 90 days. Well, now you're 6 months in and you're still only 30% occupied. Well, now that's not good. And now you're throwing a lot more money at it than you would have if you would have just started a little bit sooner and used less.
Okay, here's a trivia question for you. What's the biggest
Okay.
budget you've seen for a lease up? Just curious.
Woo, okay. If we're talking truly just PPC and not any other marketing budget, I mean, I would say PPC, we've worked in like $7,000 to $10,000 range per
Got it.
month.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're hitting in like an LA, a Miami, a Atlanta market, you definitely could. I've seen full marketing budgets. I mean, including your outreach here. I mean, you can be up to $20,000 to $50,000 some of those months. And I have seen the success from those and how putting that money in early just helps them lease up quicker. I mean, the team has that momentum going. They're excited. They're working harder. It's a lot easier when you're already 15 to 20% pre-leased before you've even opened your doors. Well, now you're feeling good and you've got that going, especially depending on the time of year you're opening. We can't all help that construction delays happen. And if that puts you, in the middle of winter now, that can be a pretty rough time. So there's a lot of things you can do to just help your team feel motivated. That does happen to you.
So the rule is don't be cheap when it comes to a
Yes.
new lease up right out the gate when it comes to marketing. You really got to put some money behind it. And the whole goal is obviously to get occupancy up as quick as humanly possible. And the only way to do that really is to put some real money behind it. That's fantastic. Okay, so do you have a go-to Google Ads strategy for lease ups that target these high intent searchers?
I would say I have certain things with certain markets that I really like. You kind of know it's very, very good to talk with your teams, especially when you're going to start running these. Let them tell you and teach you what phrases people are using in certain areas when they're searching. I was working with a property in LA And there's just so many submarkets and neighborhoods there of LA, and you're competing heavily with all your neighbors around you. So using the basic keywords, if you're not super familiar with the area, we learned that this area on this one street typically goes by Miracle Mile. And so once we started using Miracle Mile over just other neighborhood ideas, we skyrocketed. I mean, it was a complete night and day difference of what those people were searching because they live in that area. They're like, no, I truly only want to live on Miracle Mile. I don't want to live in this neighborhood. And so talking with your team and getting those things ahead of time, I would say use your keywords creatively if you have anything, that helps you stand out with your new dev. Of course, you can always use the phrase, everyone's going to use keywords like brand new apartments, lease up apartments, new apartments near me, all of those kind of things. But do those things that are truly helping you stand out that you're going to put on those banners. All right, do you have a 5,000 square foot dog park? Do you have, something wild that's going to help you stand out? You can tag along with those new keywords and help you out. I think having a mix of like a branded strategy, using your digital assets as soon as you can, having, different ad groups that you're trying. This is where it's really helpful to start early is trying different ad groups in your area, especially if it's a market that you have not built in before, or have a lot of competition. That can just help you, gauge what is working best in your market, along with performance max campaign and other strategies, your digital marketing.
What about lead tracking? So can you talk about like how that should be set up from day one and really why it matters?
Yes, and that's a good point. Just like when you said of being maybe in a walkable city or having your URL on things, I do like to get that started as quickly as you can if you are able to. I know it can be tricky sometimes with contracts with your maybe CRM provider, whatever, where you don't want to start paying that fee for that service if you're not going to be using them for the first 3. But having those tracking lines when you're able to, trackable QR codes, again, is just one of those temperature gauges that tells you what's working. If you're doing an outreach marketing, put a specific tracking code or a tracking URL or a tracking QR code on those flyers, those pamphlets you're handing out, versus a different tracking URL or a different tracking QR code on your, windscreens so that you know what's working. Okay, are more people walking by the windscreens than they did pick up our pamphlets at our golf event? Or, it can help you just figure out where your target market is and what's working.
I also seen, I thought this was kind of interesting. I saw some signage on a building where they actually were doing 2 different URLs, right? I think
Yeah.
one was on the very large vertical banner. It was like maybe leasestella.com, and then on the actual sandwich boards, it was like discoverstella.com or something like that. I just thought it was interesting, right? Just 2
I do
different
think that's
URLs.
interesting. Yeah.
Obviously they probably had some type of tracking going on with that as well.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what about retargeting for a new community? How should that happen? How should that go about?
Yes, we've hinted at it a little bit, but I think one of the easiest ways to retarget early on is email marketing. It is the easiest and most automated way for your team to retarget and just get fresh in the prospects' minds, put yourself back at the top of their inbox and retouch base with them. Having some kind of drip campaign, personalized email marketing will make it easy on your team and just constantly keep you fresh and constantly in your prospects' inbox. And it's the easiest way to do that, especially before you have a team who's able to help answer the phone and help answer emails and things.
What about retargeting with ads, right? Obviously retargeting somebody that's been on the website, landing page and that's left. I mean, should we be putting money towards retargeting these people on the other sites they visit, or, retarget them through Facebook, or what's your thoughts?
I think you have to be careful on how early you start retargeting in these instances. A lot of people are going to be checking you first. You're going to see a large spike when you first, start announcing these things or putting these things up. And people a lot of times just want to learn more and see you to do it the first time. I'd be weary of putting too much into a remarketing budget until you're pretty close to being open or accepting pre-lease. Then you're in that interesting time of people truly being able to sign leases. If you do it too early out, a lot of us, we are in multifamily, so obviously a lot of these things. But if I see a new bill, I'm just going to go look at it because I'm like, oh, what are they going to have? What are they offering? But they're still 12 months. So, don't waste too much of your money too early on trying to retarget those people in 3 months. You're still on application time.
Got it. So wait till you're open, you're accepting applications. then you can put the retargeting on, and obviously it also plays as a nice top of
Exactly.
mind reminder of who you are. There has some of that brand building aspect to it as well.
Yes.
Let's shift gears and jump right into some local outreach because I know that's super
Yeah,
important for any new development. So,
absolutely.
why is community engagement such a powerful tool in the early phases of a lease up?
I would argue that this is one of the most important tools this early in a lease because you want the trust of your community. You can have all the digital marketing, which is always great, but word of mouth is still always going to be the most important tool that we use together, just as people. You might see an ad for whatever, a new hair cream 50 times. And you might think, oh, that's really interesting. I've been looking for a new hair cream. I don't know. We'll see next time I'm there. But then you hang out with your friend at his barbecue or his cookout that night. And he says, yeah, man. And you say, your hair looks great. I've been using this new hair cream. And you're like, no way. I've been seeing stuff about that. Well, now you've got that personal connection to that person where you say, okay, well, I trust them and I trust them more than I see an ad. We all get flooded with ads all the time. And you say, well, now I'm going to go buy that hair cream. You saw the ad 50 times, but the perspective of someone you knew and trusted held a lot more weight to you. So, same thing in your community. You can put out all the ads you want. And I think that's great. Flood the market, get your name out there, let people become aware of who you are. There are going to be people who move from not your area to your community. But if you have the backing and the support and the excitement of your local community, all that's going to do is help you because they're going to say, oh, those people were great. I saw them at the brewery, when they were there on Saturday night and they were handing out these really cool koozies. They were so nice. They're telling us about all that stuff. It's going to get you a lot further than, either one, not having a pleasant experience in outreach marketing or someone saying, yeah, I don't know who they are. I just keep seeing all these communities pop up around town. I don't know what they're doing. So having the community back you is definitely one of the most vital and important things early on.
What about local events? Have you seen a few that work really, really well at building interest?
Yes, absolutely. And think of your demographic as best as you can with this. If you live in a very pet friendly beach town and it's right outside of a college, or maybe it's just where a lot of young professionals are working, go to the things that are going to make sense for the demographic. Obviously, we want everybody to live in our community, but if we are pet friendly and we've got a huge dog park, we've got a pup wash, we've got, events going around with our pups, and, we're right outside of a college area, maybe we try a brewery, maybe we try, local golf course, maybe we're trying things we know pet friendly parents are going to be at. Maybe we go to a local dog park and we put out some of our things. Do those things that are going to connect with your residents around town and the area that you're in. They can absolutely work. And again, just spreading that word of mouth to those people who you appeal to.
And that brings me into local businesses. So,
Mhm.
how can partnerships with local nearby businesses actually boost credibility and traffic for the new lease up?
Yes, there's some debate among this of how well these things work. And I think you have to think very strategically about these things because I don't think that you should just go and flood every business around you, bringing them a gift basket and then just say, hey, tell your people buying smoothies to come to our apartment complex. Okay, well, you might not have the same demographic of someone buying a $5 smoothie as looking for a $3,000, two-bedroom apartment in this area. So think wisely about the areas that you're going to try and connect with. Make sense. Is your resident who's going to live at your community go to the businesses that you're trying to connect with and make it make sense? Or are you trying to target those employees? Are you right across the street from a hospital? Well, that's probably a good place to go and deliver donuts, deliver snacks and treats, and then target those and maybe have some kind of, employer program that you're doing. Really think about it. Don't just say, oh, I'm just going to, spend $500 on these goodie bags and just give them to, 7 businesses around me. If you're going to do it, put time into that and really think about how likely those people are to either suggest you or to rent at your community.
What would you say is a simple but really effective tactic for capturing early leads and contact info when it comes to local outreach?
Local outreach, I think having nowadays, we're all very familiar with QR codes. I think make it as easy as you can for them. Have a tap tag, have a QR code, things that, we're all becoming more familiar with using. Make it very easy for them. You don't want to appear too salesy, but make it fun. If you're handing out some fun outreach at the brewery, bring your outreach marketing that makes sense for the brewery. We had a community once where they had etched the glasses that they use at the brewery. They got the same style and size glasses, but etched them with the community's name. Well, that now made a lot of sense at a brewery. Whereas if you bring, something else random that doesn't make any sense for what you're trying to market it as, make it easy for people to remember you, one, and then make it easy for them to sign up for things or want to be interested. And make it, just as clear as you can on how they can sign up and learn more with you.
All right. So that brings me into our final topic, which is kind of monitoring and adapting performance. So
Mhm.
what KPI should marketing teams be watching in those first 90 days of the lease up?
Yes, if you are able to, I think you've got a few different ways to look at it depending how early on you are. If you are truly in that, sweet spot that we would love of being 12 months out from your lease up time, I think you want to look at one, visits to your website and just clicks, how much. And I would say it depends on how much content you have, how much time people are spending on your website. Obviously, if you have a few sentences and you're saying coming soon, they're not going to spend 5 minutes on your website. See how many people are clicking, see how many people are coming back and are returning users. How many new users are you getting? I would say early on, make sure you're really watching after those key events you're doing. Pay attention those 7 to 10 days, 7 to 14 days after you had an event and see how that spikes views that you're getting. As far as Google, just see, are you being clicked? Keywords are working. What tracking lines are working the best? And those are kind of things that then you can shift your performance on how they're performing early on. If you are truly having to start, if you've taken over a property and you had no choice, but now it's in a lease up and it goes live next month and you've got to start, this is where you're going to want to hit heavy and really think strategically about the marketing dollars that you're going to put out there, the events you're doing this early on, and just make sure that you're using that as best as you can before your doors open. And then you're going to really want to be looking at, okay, we have a full website. How much time are they spending on it? Are people going to the landing page? Do we have our specials up there? That's where you're more in the going live time.
What about adjusting campaigns based on performance? How often should teams actually, adjust their campaigns?
I would say really be careful in those first 30 to 60 days in that learning time. If you constantly change it too much early on, and especially if you don't have a landing page up or you're just now getting a landing page up, Google's going to get very confused. If you're changing your campaigns every week, every few weeks, right when it's trying to learn who you are, you're going to set yourself back further than giving it that time to do it and making those strategic adjustments 60 days in.
That makes sense. So final question, what's the difference between just marketing a lease up and truly connecting with your audience?
I'd say there's a few key important facts here is I'm going to say the first one is having your team be just as excited about the lease up as you are, maybe the ownership or the management. If you have a team that's just as excited and just as motivated to connect with the community, to get leased up, to do all these exciting things, to be out on social media, you really have to pick the right people and the right team. And it's a difference of, you can put all of the digital marketing you want out there. You can run all the PPC ads, you can have all the ILS listings. But if your team isn't willing to get connected with the community or just does not seem excited about it when people are calling or stopping by, it's going to make such a huge difference. And so I think having that excited team is the difference between just being a regular lease up and then being someone who stands out with all of your marketing working in tandem with this team.
Oh, that's awesome. So wrapping this up, listeners to the podcast today that have a lease up, what is one thing that they hear all this information, right? But what is one thing that they should do when they stop listening here?
I think if you listen to all of this and then you're thinking, is it too early for me to start my marketing? No, it is absolutely not too early for you to start your marketing. I think if you're even on the cusp of debating if it's too early, it means start your marketing. Start it as soon as possible.
Oh, that's right. Always be marketing. Let's not forget that.
Yes.
All right. Awesome, Caroline. Great stuff, by the way. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. This is the Multifamily Marketers Podcast. We are here every single week with a different topic. If you like this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with your team if you think it'll help them. And we will be back next week with a new topic. Caroline, take care, and thanks for all the great stuff.
Thank you. Talk to you guys next week.